surge. The administration now considering using a vacant NASA facility to house migrant children. According to reports, Moffett Federal Airfield in Mountain View, California is expected to house a number of unaccompanied minors in Customs and Border Patrol protection. Look at this place. This is where they're going to put them. There are currently 3,500 unaccompanied minors in CPB custody. Actually, Psaki admitting today that they have had more children coming in this country without guardians. The NASA site would also work similarly to the facility in Carrizo Springs, Texas. That's where migrant children were housed until they were reunited with family members or sponsors here in the U.S. There are currently 8,100 minors in these facilities across the country. Let's welcome in now Texas Congressman Louie Gohmert. Also with us, Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman Biggs is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. And we threw that in there because of the NASA facility as well. Congressman Gohmert obviously has a lot of interest in space and aviation there in Texas as well. But we'll talk about that some other time, because let's talk about immigration, gentlemen. Obviously, Congressman Gohmert, the administration is scrambling right now. I even heard Chuck Schumer on The View saying that this is a problem. So if he's willing to admit it, they won't call it a crisis. What's the holdup for them, really tackling this issue with the response it needs?
Well, we look for ways that we can agree with people that we sometimes disagree with. And as you and Emerald were discussing and playing from Biden's speech, he did say something I could completely agree with when he said everybody lost something. And in his case, it could be he lost his mind. He's allowing these people to be lured to the United States. And let me tell you, John, when you hear the term unaccompanied minor, that's not true. They are, even if nobody else is accompanying them, they're accompanied by drug cartel coyotes. And that is not good, and that's not healthy. And any president that would continue to keep the welcome mat for the drug cartel to continue to make tens of billions of dollars so that they can corrupt Mexico and keep the Mexican people supplanted, it is outrageous. And he needs to, somebody needs to wake up at the White House and say, this has got to stop. This is a crisis of humanity that's going on right now.
And Congressman Biggs, it is, amazing to hear the White House refuse to call this what it is, in fact, a crisis. The press secretary was asked about this yesterday. She's also asked about this today, but here she was yesterday still stumbling on this Q&A.
There are over 3,700 children, unaccompanied migrant children, in Border Patrol custody. How can you say that's not a crisis?
It doesn't matter what you call it. It is an enormous challenge.
On the comments of the Mexican president, who said that the surge in unaccompanied migrants is because they see the president as the migrant president. What does that say about how the president is handling this situation?
The border is not open. Now is not the time to come.
The border is not open. Now is not the time to come. But their policies, Congressman Biggs, seem to send the complete opposite message.
Yeah, make no mistake, this is Biden's inhumane border crisis, and it's come about because he campaigned on amnesty, he campaigned on an open border policy, and so that's why you see people on the border now wearing Biden T-shirts, holding signs saying, Biden, let us in. And the reality is, it is inhumane. It's inhumane because, as Louie said, you got kids and over 9,000 unaccompanied minors. And when they're unaccompanied, that means simply that they don't have their parent or some other relative with them. It means you got a cartel coyote that's taking them. We've got raping going on. You got sexual assault and abuse going on all along this journey. 1 in 6 men and 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted and controlled by these cartels. It's inhumane. And then on this side of it, when they get here, we don't even know, we're not going to adequately vet who these individuals, these kids are going to go to. And so you see these pictures that you're showing, these are kids in cages again. And this was reminiscent of the Biden era when he was with President Obama. So these are kind of wrapped together.
That's why the question worked so well in the debate. Who built the cages, Joe? We know the answer to that question. Congressman Gohmert, let's go ahead and listen to Chuck Schumer talking about the situation on the border. Here it is.
It will get better in the next few months. If it doesn't, I will go to them and say, you got to do better. And if they don't, I will be public. But I got to give them a little bit of a chance because they inherited a big, big mess created by Donald Trump, whose views on immigrants, it just turns me off so.
It's not about turning people off, is it? It's about getting results. And we know it's not, again, the more humane thing apparently to do is to actually have a zero tolerance policy, because that actually prevents the people from coming in the first place. We got Mexico calling Joe Biden, the migrant president, concerned about the incentive this gives for coyotes and drug cartels to continue to smuggle people across the borders.
Yeah, that is so outrageous. He and Biden both, well, and I'm sure somebody just put it in Biden's teleprompter, but they are the ones that created this crisis. There was not a crisis there. They didn't inherit a crisis. They created a crisis by telling people all over the world, now is the time to come, even though now they're waving their hands, come on in, while they're saying, hold up. But as even many Democrats have said, the immigrants have gotten the message. They're coming, no matter what you say about, don't come right now, come later. They're coming in droves. It is their crisis. They created it. Trump had it under control. Why? Because he was compassionate about those people that were in terrible situations. He didn't want them controlled by the drug cartels. But Biden doesn't care. It's same with China. Yeah, we won't even address the fact of where the coronavirus came from. It is tortuous what is happening to America and now happening to America's neighbors.
And the whole thing, too, about Chuck Schumer saying, well, I'll be public about it if they don't do something about it. We know something needs to be done. I think there was even Nansen admission of that today when we heard from Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor. But again, we won't hold our breath to see what comes of their immigration policies, because if the previous administration before President Trump was any example on this, they will not go over well. Go ahead, Congressman.
The question for Schumer now that he said that is, so, Senator, where do you draw the line? How many murders and rapes do you think are appropriate before you finally do the right thing?
Well, let us know if you can holler that at him in the halls of Congress when you see him next time, because I would love to know the answer. He is not the type of guy who likes to come on this show, even though he likes to go on The View. Let's talk a little bit more, too, about President Biden's primetime address last night as it relates to the COVID bill. It was his first time talking to the American public in 50 days since he took office. Earlier in the day, he signed that $2 trillion spending bill. And after his 20-minute speech, no questions from the press in attendance. If somebody's going to spend $2 trillion, I would like to ask some questions. Congressman Biggs, what would you like to ask President Biden about this $2 trillion?
Well, I would like to ask him why we're still employing Dr. Fauci, who's been wrong on everything. Why is he resting his policy? Why is Joe Biden, as president, resting his policy on Dr. Fauci, who thinks that you should wear 2 masks, everybody should get vaccinated, and you will still never get back to normal life? Why are we engaged in these tyrannical lockdowns that have put people out of business? They've, as the one thing he got right last night is a generation of kids have been stunted. They're dealing with emotional, mental, and social difficulties now. I would ask those things, and the reality is, he's holding out hope for what? For the free American people, the freest nation in the history of the earth. He's saying, if you do what I say, as an authoritarian, tyrannical president, we might let you have a cookout with a small group of your friends or family on July 4th, but you better do everything we say, which includes obeying Dr. Fauci, wearing masks, getting vaccines, which, oh, by the way, Donald Trump facilitated that. And that's why we even have vaccines today. Because if you had the same Democrat kind of policies with regard to regulation, you still wouldn't have a vaccine. So I thought it was not only an empty suit performance, I thought it was one where he grasped authoritarianism as a doddering old president, and so he gets sympathy, but the reality is it was very authoritarian in nature.
Definitely a kind of a Jimmy Carter malaise vibe to that speech, I would say, Congressman Gohmert.
Yes, absolutely, it was. And, we talk about the CDC and do it this, like Andy says, they want us to do everything they said. They have been wrong every other step along the way. And Fauci still needs to answer for the millions that he had sent to the Wuhan lab to work on stuff like this. So there's a lot of answers yet to be obtained, and we have just got to keep pushing. And even though they don't want to come on your show, John, still, it's important to keep pushing.
I don't take it personally. I do have questions for Chuck Schumer about Free Willy. We talked about that yesterday, and his daughters being so embarrassed by him crying in Free Willy, they had to walk out of the movie theater. That's not a situation I hope to ever find myself in with my daughters. Congressman, great to see you both. Congressman Gohmert, Congressman Biggs, we appreciate your time, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.